So at 22, I became really interested in truth, in healing, in authenticity in the best way, not in the sort of shiny way that it's come to be known now. I got really into how can you kind of figure out who you are and untangle it from your kind of childhood experiences. How do you process emotions? How do you make decisions? Because I realized that actually I didn't have any of that skill set, and it had left me in a really big mess, and my sort of nuclear family, the four of us, in a real mess.
Hi, I'm Liv Nunn, and this is the mess we're in, i.e. life. Because life is in fact one big mess that we are all trying to make sense of and navigate our way through. The universe itself is a vast expanse of unorganised chaos. Stars are exploding all over the place, which makes me feel a sense of ease. I want to enable conversations that allow us to all embrace our mess at every level, or at least feel open and comfortable talking about it. I hope you enjoy our ramblings. Hi Zoe.
Hi.
Hello, how are you today?
I am good. It's one of those boiling hot days and I live by the sea, so
it's
very happy.
Absolutely sweltering. Yeah, central London in the smog. Smog. It's never quite as rewarding as being by the sea, but I am grateful for this amazing weather and this amazing day. And I am so grateful to be talking to you today, honestly, as podcasting royalty in my eyes. Honestly, it's so wonderful to have you here and to be able to explore this topic with you, because I really value your perspective, and I feel as if through your conversations that you have had on your podcast, on the Motherkind podcast, and having spoken to so many psychologists and self-development experts and people in the well-being world and coaches, being a coach yourself, and I just really, I thought, gosh, if I could talk to Zoe and get your perspective and opinions and insights on this notion of mess and messiness and the mess that we find ourselves in life, it would be inspirational for people to hear. Because I find that there is just an automatic negative framing that comes with mess. When you hear the words mess or messy, what does it bring up for you?
It kind of brings up, I know what you mean around that negativity. For me, it doesn't bring that up in the same way. I think I far more think about just reality. For me, when I think about mess, I just think about reality, because I think everything's messy.
Yes.
And I think, work's messy, life's messy, parenting's messy. Nothing is kind of perfect and controlled and ordered. So when I hear that word mess, I just think, just reality.
Love that. That's just such a brilliant opener to frame, because that's exactly it. I think any negative framing, it just immediately, it stigmatizes the normality of the human experience, which is exactly as you've just said, it's messy. And I just want to invite people to be curious about how we might be able to reframe the conversation about messiness and just acknowledge how it is like part of growth and part of our journey and part of healing and what we all experience day to day, like those fluctuating emotions and ups and downs. Do you feel that you have been privy? Well, I feel as if everyone can see that you have been privy to lots of discussions around how mess can infiltrate within life, within everybody's life journey.
Yeah, I actually feel like it's kind of people think that growth, or anything, if it's business growth or personal growth or just kind of living, is kind of this linear and you go up the ladder, and it's just not like that at all. For me, and certainly all the people that I've spoken to, it's far more that you kind of, something happens, whether that's you become a mum, which is what I specialize in, or you lose your job, or you're divorced, or whatever it is, something flies in, or it may be an internal thing that flies in. You get a memory, or you decide you want more for your life, or you decide that, actually me being here in this environment isn't working more, whatever it is, something comes in and then it gets really messy while you try and figure that out, whether it's messily trying to grow a business and figure out a new industry, or messily trying to, work on your relationship, or messily becoming a mum and trying to grapple with that new role, or whatever it is. And then I feel like there's these moments where things sort of click into place and you're like, oh, okay, I remember I've had this at every area in my life.
Yes.
You go, okay, I sort of get that now. I get the parenting thing a bit more. I get matrescence a bit more. I get, for me at work, like, okay, I get the industry. I get content. I get how to go. And then something else happens.
Yep.
And then you're all messy again. And I feel like that is actually the way that growth happens.
Yeah, it is. You get these cycle.
Yeah, you get these brief interludes where something clicks and you get it. And particularly if you're interested in growth, which I am, I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it at work. I'm obsessed with it personally. I'm obsessed with it in my life. I just always want to be kind of growing and becoming more and more me and elevating what's possible in, for my kids, for everything. If you're into that sort of life, then what you're really signing up for is just feeling deeply uncomfortable and confused most of the time, because the moment you get to that level, you're like, okay, what's next?
Yes.
So I feel like it is just one big sort of messy exploration, really.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that sense that there are points, there's junctures where you might be hit with a real experience, something that throws disorder, something that puts you into disarray. And yeah, certainly, as we both know, motherhood is one of those points in life, and one of those that can just be a dramatic change and dramatic departure, and something that is so challenging and can throw you into so much chaos in physical ways, in mental ways, like our hormones and everything that entails. Yeah, I really want to get into that part of the conversation with you around motherhood and matrescence. And I hate to say the mess that motherhood may lead us to find ourselves in, but I'm very open about the sense of chaos that motherhood brought forward for me. But I want to backtrack slightly and just talk a bit. I'd love if you could tell me a bit about prior to Motherkind, prior to the podcast, like a little bit of your history, like what was your journey into Motherkind, and how did that all come to pass?
When I hit sort of 21, 22, my family imploded, really. I sort of had on the outside this perfect family unit. And when I was 21, 22, in lots of big ways, that unit of the four of us completely broke down in really shocking and dramatic ways, which meant that I had no choice really than to go into therapy. I went into lots of different 12-step groups, which I found to be really helpful for me, which is kind of the anonymous recovery model. I really took a lot from that. So at 22, I became really interested in truth, in healing, in authenticity, in the best way, not in the sort of shiny way that it's come to be known now. I got really into how can you kind of figure out who you are and untangle it from your kind of childhood experiences. How do you process emotions? How do you make decisions? Because I realized that actually I didn't have any of that skill set, and it had left me in a really big mess, and my sort of nuclear family, the four of us, in a real mess.
Why are we not allowed that as children? Why is there not more focus on educating us about how to deal with our own mess and our identities? And there's so much that is missing from schools, I think, in like just that educational process of us helping ourselves deal with mess at a young age. Gosh, yeah, say that.
So much. And so at 22, I sort of thought, right, well, I'll just educate myself. And I really did become obsessed. I'm quite an obsessive person. So when I get into something, I get really into it. And I read, thousands of books. I did all the different therapies that were available. I was working in a graduate job, and I had some salary for the first time ever, so I could afford, because on the weekends that's what I would focus on. And I did that for pretty much a decade, and I changed careers in that time. I left corporate. I realized that wasn't, my ladder was against the wrong wall. I did not want to be climbing that ladder, so I tore the wall down, the ladder down, and started working for myself. And then I became a mum, and I thought that because I sort of had this decade of knowledge and healing and therapeutic work behind me, that I knew that obviously sleep deprivation and all that would be really difficult, but I thought that I would handle it emotionally, but I did not handle it emotionally. And what happened was that everything that was sort of unresolved in me came up, and I found myself feeling incredibly controlling, incredibly hard on myself, perfectionistic, really struggled with the loss of identity, really struggled with the loss of control around my time. And so I did almost what I'd done a decade prior and just thought, right, this is not working for me. I feel awful. Let's just go and research. And that was the light bulb moment for me, because when I went to research what is happening to me, not as a parent, not about how many nappy changes should I be doing or what should I be wearing or, what buggy should I buy? What was happening to me emotionally? There was nothing, very, very, very little, certainly very little in the way that I would want to consume it. There was no podcast, there was no books, there was nothing. At the time, it was the rise of the mummy blogger. The best-selling book was called Hurrah for Gin. I was sober, so I thought, this just doesn't talk to me. Talk to me. And actually, it kind of lit a fire in me. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go and do all this research. And I did. And I learned about matrescence, and I learned about generational trauma and epigenetics. And I learned about inherited critic, not the inner critic. And I just threw myself in, and it completely transformed the next 6 months of my motherhood journey. Completely transformed. I was able to co-regulate with my daughter. I was able to care for myself. I felt less guilty. I found my confidence. And so I thought I would basically tell everyone that I met about this.
Yeah.
And I think because I was boring everyone in my life, they suggested that I did this maybe on a podcast or a blog or something. So it was originally going to start a blog, and then I turned it into a podcast. And what happened was, because my passion was so big, and I do have this skill set where, I love talking, I'm quite articulate, I'm a really good researcher. I had no idea that I actually had the perfect skill set to grow a platform and a brand with this podcast at the epicenter of it. And so what happened was, over the last 8 years, I've grown it and become even more passionate about the work that I do, because still there's more of us now, but it's still only a handful of us who are actually talking about this in the way that we talk about it. So that's 20 years in 2 minutes.
But oh my gosh, but what are 20 years? And honestly, just kudos to you. And it's that incredible, empowering fact of you being able to in healing yourself and in developing a dialogue around these things and around the shifting identities and attacking and approaching something that people were obviously dealing with, but not overtly, bringing the conversations above maybe their own private, their personal situations and where they were, or discussing it amongst friends, and actually, being able to bring it out into the public. And you've created this platform that is so healing and transformational for others. And what you said there about, from my personal perspective as well, that transition into motherhood, and the way I really do empathize, and I had a very similar, as I do call it an unraveling to some degree, because it literally, becoming a mum for me, just shone the spotlight on everything that I hadn't processed in my life previously. And actually a huge, extreme, messy period ensued, because I hadn't tackled and I hadn't processed and I hadn't understood any of the trauma that I'd experienced in my past, in my youth, and having lost my mum at 13, and the grief around that had just stayed undiscussed really for a long time. And so suddenly, when you become a mum and you're faced with exactly sleep deprivation, you don't know what's happening hormonally, the imbalances, the shifting emotions, the rage, the anger, all of this that comes up, and we don't know how to deal with it. And it's really hard to not in the early instances feel kind of embarrassed, or feel as if the emotions that you're having are wrong. Did you find that when you first were dealing with early motherhood, how do we deal with shame? It's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, shame is when we decide that we're wrong, there's something wrong with us. And I think that's always what I remember about, every day when I get up to work, I'm thinking, what I'm really doing here is helping to reduce so much shame about that maternal experience through this lens of matrescence, where it's completely normal to feel just a range of conflicting emotions, like absolute love and awe, and then absolute rage and anger, and feeling claustrophobic almost by the experience. So that word matrescence kind of normalizes all of that. That's why I love it so much, because it really just it normalizes it. And
can you define matrescence a bit for me? I like it when it's been referenced previously as well to adolescence, like adolescence being that period we go through where there's huge hormonal changes, but people do understand it a bit more, and people give a bit of license to it, that we're going through adolescence, things are happening, but matrescence is really only, as far as I'm aware, and you're somebody who's been leading the charge in the conversation of raising the awareness around matrescence as a valid period of time in a woman's life. Can you define it for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, you just described it really. So we all know adolescence is kind of a period, 3 to sort of 7 years, when you go from a teen to an adult. And as you said, we give people quite a lot of understanding of thought, that you try on different identities and you're not sure who you are. And it's a real sort of becoming. It's known as a developmental transition in someone's life, a developmental leap, where you're not who you were, you're kind of not yet that adult, and you're in the messy middle, to coin, this kind of podcast. And matrescence is exactly the same. You are not who you were before you were a mother, and you're not yet into that kind of more solid, confident version of you, and you fit all your parts of your life around motherhood. Now you're in that messy middle, and that messy middle is what matrescence is really. Mm-hmm. It's the understanding that it is a developmental phase. You don't leave that hospital with a baby and think, I'm a mother now, and you suddenly know what you're doing, your identity is reset, all the other areas in your lives are set around it. It is a process. And absolutely. That is why I love matrescence, because that has been largely kind of ignored. Like, often the received wisdom is to get your old self back, you'll bounce back. And that completely ignores the truth of it, which is that the reason we graft to that old identity is because it's so uncomfortable in this sort of, we're lost at sea often. It's how it can feel. And so it makes sense that we think, I just want to get my old self back because it can feel so self. But the truth is that version of you has kind of sailed on. That version of you has gone, and just the way that your teenage self is gone when you hit kind of 20, 21, 22, you would never say, don't worry, you'll get your 18-year-old self back. Yeah. It's far more about, who am I now? What's important to me now? Can I have compassion with myself through these years of my life where I'm trying to figure it out?
Exactly. And learn from it. And as we were referencing right at the start, just the fact that it is actually growth, and the experiences, the journey through the mess is how we grow, and actually like becoming that new version of ourselves is part of the process, and is valid, and we need to accept it and be able, I feel as if it's actually the key is to be able to tolerate it, and to be able to tolerate uncertainties and tolerate fluctuations and tolerate the variability of emotions, because it's always going to be there. And so that's what we need to do, particularly for women, and with the hormonal balances and imbalances that we have. That's something that I'm only learning about now. Again, it's another transition point. It's this point of perimenopause and coming up to the menopause, us as women in our 40s. Have you ever spoken to any perimenopause and menopause experts about what's happening for women in this period of our lives, the messy perimenopause stage?
Yeah, I have. I've spoken to quite a few menopause experts on the podcast, mainly because I'm fascinated by what happens when we're having our children later, and matrescence collides with perimenopause, and what can happen there. So yeah, again, just a huge kind of developmental phase, hormonally driven, where again I think it is an unraveling. And I love the idea of both these phases, matrescence and menopause, being about, yes, it's really difficult, but that if we're supported, we emerge stronger. And I think that is the key, is being supported through these phases as women so that we can emerge stronger, as opposed to, shells of ourselves, which is what happens if we're not supported and it's not understood.
Yeah, and absolutely. And because all of these, everything that is happening physically in our bodies it's impacting our mind. The body, I've learned finally in the last 5 years of my life, the interplay and the interrelation of the body and our mind, and actually how, hormones and everything that we're doing and what food we're eating, how that impacts the mess of the mind. And if we, as you say, if we aren't supported, then we're completely we're at risk of becoming potentially quite ill mentally. I think that is in effect what I experienced when I became a mum, was I wasn't equipped enough with the language and understanding of even what was going on to be able to rationalize things in my head. And so suddenly I became so anxious. And I don't think, I tried to track back and think about whether I was, how I was when I was younger, like whether I had this going on in my head, like whether I was messy in my mind. Were you an anxious child? Like, did you feel like when you were growing up, did you have a sort of mess in the mind, or how were you when you were growing up?
I wouldn't say I was anxious, although looking back now with that label, you can think, oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I think I was more disconnected would be the word that would have described me. So I was always really high achieving, just loved achievement, still do, if I'm honest. Like I love getting A's and I love ticking things off, and I think I'll just always be like that.
Yeah.
But underneath, I think there was definitely a disconnection from myself.
Yeah,
is how I would describe it.
Yeah,
kind of an inability to be able to kind of know how I was feeling or support myself.
Yes.
I've always had quite a hard relationship with myself. I don't anymore, but growing up, I definitely did. I was critical of myself often.
Yeah.
I kind of had that strong voice, which was, you've got nothing to cry about, suck it up and get on with it. That was like the predominant voice in my head.
Yeah.
And that's really different now. It isn't like that at all. And I still achieve loads. I think there's this kind of sense that maybe that voice is in people who are high achievers, and that hasn't been my experience. It's been that I've achieved more with a much more kinder, supportive relationship, connected relationship with myself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can understand that. I definitely have that same sort of those perfectionist tendencies and that need to feel as if I am achieving and doing well. And I've worked on it so much over the years, but I think when I was growing up, it was within my orbit. Everything was actually in quite a lot of disarray. And I talked about this with another friend on the podcast, that I felt like I had to, even physically, sort of try and keep myself so orderly and get things so organized and try and make everything so perfect because things were falling down around me. So I remember like how sort of anxious I did feel, because there was never, I didn't feel secure, and there was this uncertainty of what was going to happen in my family with my mum being ill. And so, I found myself having these sort of tendencies to just want everything to be like completely in order, quite OCD, I think.
Which makes sense, doesn't it? If you think about that, I think of a lot of these things as kind of coping strategies, or it makes a lot of sense that if you're young and your world is feeling very unstable and out of control on the outside, that you would try and control what you can. It's just that then when our world changes, we then have to do that work to think, okay, I need to unravel this coping strategy, which probably did, keep me safe to some extent, probably was quite effective. But actually now I've outgrown that. So now, that's sort of that growth, isn't it, that we talk about, and the sort of messiness of that. But I think that's what it is. That's what it's been for me, is kind of recognizing, oh, okay, that served me really well. I can see that.
Yeah.
But actually now it's kind of hindering me. Now I don't want to burn out all the time.
No,
exactly. I want to be able to do things just as well, but in a different way. And then that's when you go into that sort of learning phase and you unravel and you try new things and things click and things don't click. And then you might get some help. And that's how it's been for me, the same. Just lots of kind of unraveling.
Have you had what's your relationship been like between physical mess and your own like organization in your head? Have you been a messy person ever? What was it like for you?
Oh no, I am a messy person.
You physically messy? Because there's real correlations like psychologically and in neuroscience discussions. And I think I saw you've talked to a decluttering expert, and I'm trying to get someone on the podcast as well to talk about that relationship between physical order and physical mess and how it affects you in your mind. So you are actually quite messy.
Yeah, I'm a fascinating one because growing up, my mum was incredibly neat and tidy and organised. I mean, still now her home is like going into a show home, like no one has ever lived there. And I feel like part of it is rebellion against that. Part of it also is that I prioritise so much my inner world. So and emotional connection with my kids. So if I get 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, there is no way I will spend that cleaning the kitchen island. I will spend that putting on a meditation, sitting in the garden with a cup of tea, or if my kids are there, I will sit with them, play with them, chat with them. For me, it's just a kind of order of priorities thing. I am lucky in that I'm not the sort of person who has to have things very orderly on the outside in order to feel secure and safe and stable and happy on the inside.
Yeah,
like
that's really good.
I don't have that.
No.
And lots of people say, well, no, they're linked. But I don't know the research on it. My lived experience is that internally I feel very happy most of the time, grounded, regulated, how I want to feel.
Yes.
But externally, if you walked through my house, you would be like, I mean, it's not crazy, right? It's not like I'm not a hoarder level.
No,
but there's always piles of stuff everywhere.
Okay, yeah.
There's always piles of stuff on the island. The shoes are just thrown into the hall. There's no like that. But that does not bother me one iota. Doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me think anything about myself.
No,
I don't feel embarrassed. I have a rule where I don't tidy the playroom, and this has been quite an interesting thing for me. So I don't tidy. We're quite lucky. We have a playroom. It's at the end of the house, so I can shut the door and I don't see it, which I think really helps. But equally, when kind of new friends or mum friends or come round, like it's definitely been a conversation point because it looks like I don't tidy. I mean, it looks like I'm not saying it to be exaggerating. It is chaos in there. But I just decided that, particularly in this season of life, time is my most precious resource. It really is. And so I just thought, right, if I have half an hour, what's most important to me? And I used to tidy it all, and then the next day within 10 minutes it was back, and I was like, this actually is kind of insane. So I just stopped. And when my mum comes, she cannot bear it because she is this absolute neat freak. So she tidies it all up for me. So that sort of gives it a reset every 3 or 4 months. Maybe it gets that.
Maybe that's a generational thing as well in what people can tolerate or what they can't.
She can't tolerate it. I'm like, it does not bother me.
That's really good. And I have to say, I've really worked on that, like I was referencing in my youth. And again, I think it was a control thing. It was trying to control maybe what was going on in my life and what the nervousness and the uncertainty. And so I was trying to make my world around me orderly, but now I am way more relaxed about it. And again, I think I've worked through it. I've acknowledged it. I now feel more comfortable with the sense of mess. And maybe that's actually what incentivized me to even have this conversation and do this podcast, was to try and deal. And again, like it is, just make it fully clear that I can tolerate mess and bear it now more so than I did in my childhood. I definitely think that there's certain levels that people can and can't exist in. I've got some friends who literally just have stuff everywhere though, like just piles and piles and piles all around them. But again, it's each to their own. It's what everybody can bear with and can deal with. I also think now, back to the point about us as mums and needing to prioritize our time, like when I read in your book, I love that chapter about boundaries and balance and trying to find, because we are never going to be able to balance everything that we need to do. So yes, we've got to prioritize things. We have to ring fence our time, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Like you only have so many hours. And if you try and do everything that you want to kind of the standard that you want to, you actually can't. And if you try, you'll probably be up till 1, 2 a.m., which a lot of mothers are, kind of tidying up. And it's just, to me, that is wild. I will always prioritize sleep above anything else, really. So
that's good to know.
Yeah.
What are your tips to help you regulate? You said, and again, totally admire and think that it's really brilliant to prioritize your inner world and make sure that you're always feeling good. What are your what would be your tips for how to regulate any of the mess that might come into your mind, and how you do maintain that sense of inner peace in your inner world?
There's a lot. I'll try and think about some kind of simple in the moment ones and then some bigger ones. So simple in the moment ones is just, I'm super conscious of the narrative that's in my head. So if thoughts start coming in, which are kind of like, negative, doubting myself, I will not allow that to continue anymore, because those thoughts have such an impact on everything, how I interact with the girls, how I am at work, everything. If I start having those critical and negative kind of fear-based thoughts, I'm super vigilant about that. And I think it's important to say those don't ever stop. That's not been my experience, is that I can catch them and then I'm able to be like, actually, that is not true. You're not being very kind to yourself. This is actually a perspective and reality. And that's been a long time practicing that, like 20 years, practicing how to do that. So that's the first thing. I am very, very, very vigilant on that. And now most of the time that sort of internal narrative is like, I'm so proud of you, you can do it. Like, it's very positive. It's almost like a internalized coach, best friend. So that's the first thing. The second one is physical regulation. So I am really good at kind of using breath. I'm really good at noticing when I'm getting kind of panicky or anxious and pausing straight away, asking myself, how important is this? This actually is not an emergency. That is really important, because it spirals, those thoughts, and that's what panic attack is. It's a kind of the spiraling up to the peak. So I'm really good at catching that quite quickly physically. And that's just about knowing your body. Like, where do you feel that in your body? I'm also really good at not taking on too much, which is that boundaries that you mentioned. So people kind of, my team joke at me because I'm so boundaried with what I will do, what I won't do, what I'll take on. Sundays, typically, we never have any plans on a Sunday. It's quite rare that we'll have a plan on a Sunday, because I just feel like otherwise, you're getting up and it's like, right, we've got this lunch with this family at 12 and go, and and I hate that. I'm kind of allergic to that feeling of being on timetables and schedules, and I think it doesn't serve my kids very well. And there's lots of actual research about that as well, around overscheduling and what that looks like. So I'm super boundaried. And that means that I have to make really hard trade-offs, particularly around friendships and things that I want to do, but actually, I choose not to do. So that really, really, really helps. And then I also have quite a solid spiritual practice. So I'm not religious, but I do have a connection to something bigger than me. I think a lot about nature and how everything in nature just unfolds and no one is controlling it. And so when I feel, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'll just remind myself just to kind of surrender and trust, and that it's all worked out up until this point. You've handled everything up until this point. I will handle everything going forward. And that I find very calming and grounding, particularly if things are like work perspective, and it's like everyone's panicking or something's gone wrong, or, that feeling. And it's like, I'll just, I wouldn't say it to the team necessarily or in a meeting, but internally I am saying, all is well, you can handle this, you can trust this. And I find that to be highly calming.
Yeah. Trusting more in the universe and in...
I just trust. I'm like, I just trust that this will work out. I trust there's something in this for me to learn. I trust that I can handle this. I trust that more will be revealed. You know, and you've got a big decision to make and you're like, I don't know what to do. I say to myself, more will be revealed. Like, just trust yourself. More will be revealed. You'll know when it's time to act. If you don't know, it's because it's not time yet.
Yeah.
So I use all those sort of, I don't know what you call them, spiritual principles, I suppose.
Yeah.
That keep me very peaceful most of the time, even though there's lots going on, and you know, I have a public persona now, and that brings with it loads of challenges, but most of the time I feel pretty peaceful with those tools and trusting, and then of course, you know, there's moments where I don't feel those things, but the only difference is how quickly can I get back to that place. I think about it as like my rebound rate. Like in the past, it might have been 6 months of like panic, and now it'll be like 6 minutes. And I'm like, that was really good.
Brilliant.
Like that's progress.
Yeah, you've nailed it. Definitely. I was listening recently to Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. And in that book, she references how all ideas, everything is out there, everything that is meant for you. You know, there is that famous expression of what is meant for you will not pass you by and all of that. But that book it really inspired me to go, yeah, there is out there within nature, like everything is out there existing, and we'll find our way. I feel way more relaxed now about the opportunities that may or may not come to me. I used to be on that drive agenda of trying to make things happen and trying to reach the next place. And now I feel like a bit more content. Exactly. I think just a bit more assured that everything will be okay.
Yeah, that's it. And and I still work really hard, and I still make things happen, and I still put in all the effort.
Yeah.
It's not like you sort of just sit there and go, oh, I just trust and I've built this global. The effort goes in, but it's not from a place of fear. It's not from a place of panic.
Yeah.
It's not from a place of needing to prove myself. It's more from a place of like, I just really want to make this happen.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, if it's a new project or something.
Yeah.
And then I will trust that I'll be nudged and guided through that. So, you know, 10 people don't reply to the email about it. That's interesting. Maybe the pitch, like maybe the idea is not right. I wouldn't keep or then start beating myself up. I knew this would fail. You're so stupid. Why did you think this would work? I'll just be like, oh, it's really interesting feedback that life's giving me. It's kind of crickets. Maybe I need to make a tweak. Like, what would that tweak be? And then you know, you try something else, and then 10 people all reply within 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, that's just a kind of feedback for me. Like, oh, this is the right path. So then I would really quickly just let that side go, and then I would just go all in on where the ease and the flow is. That's how I run the business, really, and I run my life. Just go all in on where the ease and the flow is.
Yeah, I love that. Be able to maneuver and not be, I guess it's when you're not so focused or completely desperate for a certain outcome. If you can lighten your attitude towards like the final outcome has to be X, Y, and Z, and like adapt along the way, like you're saying.
And even if you're in like a corporate job and you can't change the outcome, because that was my experience as well for a long time, and I know yours, like, you know, no, the business needs this, I can't say, oh, let's do this, you know, but then you can also tweak how you are doing it. What feels most easeful, even with the partners that you're bringing in to help you, you know, launch something or a campaign or whatever it is. I think you can still use those principles of like what feels aligned, as opposed to that sort of spreadsheeted, like it's going to go this way.
There's definitely, I think, something to be said for allowing other people to share in your experience of, let's say, the mess that you're having, like finding those collaborators, finding partners, finding other people to be able to, again, it's kind of almost what we're doing with what you did with your podcast and the whole notion of bringing more conversations into play and finding collaborators, because the more that we share and actually like allow and expose vulnerability, there's like real kind of breaks down a lot of barriers, I think. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Carol, can I ask, what would you class as the biggest mess that you have ever found yourself in to date? Is there one or a period of your life, and it could be work related, it could be personal, it could be Is there one defining one?
I would say, yeah, there's been two really. One at that sort of age 22, 21, where everything sort of went wrong, really. That was really messy. And then the other one would be early matrescence, was really messy, really messy. And then physically, I mean, so many, but you know, my loft, and I know for many, it is hilarious. It's just like, it's full to the rafters. You can't even get in it anymore. Everything that I don't know where to put, I just shove it in there. It is literally like...
You've got the playroom and the loft that are inaccessible.
Basically inaccessible at this point, yeah.
You need to be careful that doesn't all come crashing down on you from the...
It will. Someday I'm gonna have to face it, but it won't be today and it won't be tomorrow.
No, but also the mess that we allow our children to play in, that's something I've talked to other people about, like the notion of play and allowing kids especially to get themselves messy and to really have, it's fun, right? It's a place that they should be able to experiment and actually, you know, help.
Yeah, I feel like it's such a gift to be the sort of mum who's not bothered by that sort of mess, because it's really helped me. It's really served me well to, you know, get the kids involved in messy play whenever they ask, you know, whatever age they were, whatever, you know, can I do an experiment? My answer is always yes.
Yeah.
Because it takes quite a lot for me. You know, there's always a way around it. I'm like, yes, but let's do it outside. Or yes, but wait half an hour for mummy to finish work and then I'm going to do it with you because actually this might explode, whatever they're doing. And I feel like we've always done so many. I'm really into experiments, both sort of like, you know, with the kids, like what happens if we do that? Oh, that's really interesting. What do you think's going to happen? Let's do it. And in my own life, like experiments, like I wonder what happens if I set that boundary? What happens if I start exercising more or eating better? Or what happens if I believed in myself? What happens if I just went for it? I love the idea because it just takes all that pressure off. It's like kind of running mini experiments. And so what's fascinating is both my kids now want to be scientists.
No way.
And
I love
that.
I
think it's just because we're always doing that. You know, we're always experimenting and getting the result. And I'll say to them, what do you think is going to happen? And then they'll do it, or you know, or even in their lives, I'll be like, "What? Stand up for yourself in the playground. Let's see what happens. Let's just see this. You can't do it right. You can't do it wrong. But just you've been quiet.
Yeah.
For 3 months, you know, with a friendship challenge or something. This is to my 9-year-old. Let's see what happens if you speak up for yourself. What do you think might happen? Oh, I think this might. Okay, we'll test it out.
That's so good.
And then she came home. She was like, "Mummy, it was fine. I stood up for myself, and I think they sort of like me more." And I said, "Oh, isn't that fascinating?" And then we can sort of decode it. And I think it's so easy to be like, "This is how it has to be," and you know, do this. And I never had that approach with my kids and my own life. I've always just been like, let's try this. The same with the podcast, like, let's just try it.
Totally. Experiment, see what happens, see where it goes.
See what happens. I do it like we experiment. We're always running experiments in the business. Like, what happens if we do this? What happens if we do this? What happens if we do this? And then the things that work, we just go all in on.
Yeah.
It's kind of an easier way to live and a lighter way to live. I find, definitely.
That's really good. I have to, I'm definitely becoming better at it. There's still some things that I just don't feel like I can endure slime. Just like when there's some things that when my daughter is playing around me.
Even outside, even if it's outside.
No, do you know what? Outside is okay. It's just when around me, there's suddenly like different levels of like goo and slime and things that are just sticking all around me. There's certain points where I just go, oh God, I don't know.
My husband's like that. Guys like that. He can't bear slime or glitter. So I'm like, just do it out. To me, I'm like, that's why, you know, we're so lucky to have an outside space.
Yeah,
just do it out. Just do it out. I let them do kind of anything outside.
Yeah, back to nature. That's it.
Yeah, just get outside. Just do it out. Do it outside. Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't want to go outside because it's too cold, then do you know what I mean? Like, that's your problem. I don't want to do the slime. That's why, you know, so they'll either do it or not. But yeah, it makes motherhood easier for sure. Like you know, I've got some friends who hover over and can't bear any mess. And I think that's difficult. It's really difficult difficult for you because you're kind of always in that, you know, tense state, and difficult for the kids as well, I think.
Yeah, because I don't think it allows them to unleash their creativity. I find it really hard if we don't encourage the next generation to be creative and to allow themselves to express themselves, then they might end up again. It's if they feel like they have to repress their mess, how are they going to cope in our society? I think, again, when we're faced with this inundation of social media and everybody actually having these platforms to express themselves, and I do find that if your child doesn't feel confident and comfortable being able to express themselves, then they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm gonna round up and bring our chat to a close. It's been so wonderful exploring all of these themes and notions of mess and how we navigate our messy lives with you. I definitely, like, a big takeaway from this conversation, I think, is around just the cycles, like right when we started talking, how you referenced that growth is in itself navigating through messy times, and that there's going to be so many at different junctures in our lives, and we just have to be prepared for it and find our ways to navigate.
Exactly. I've loved it. Thank you. It's been so interesting thinking about kind of mess in that way. I've never thought about it. So thank you. You fired off loads of thoughts in my head as well.
Is there a song that would, for you, crystallize a sense of mess, or is there one that has brought you through a mess? I always bring it back to music, where I navigated a very, very messy career, and I've got a few songs that really that have helped me get through messy times. Have you got any?
Yeah, there's one, which is when I was pregnant, I got really into Kundalini yoga, which is this just mad yoga. It's mental, right? And I actually trained in it when I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And there's a song which is May the Long Time Sun shine upon you. I am not going to sing it, but someone can look it up. All love surround you, and the light that shines within you guide your way on. And you sing that at the end of every Kundalini class. If anyone's done one who's listening, they will know that. And so I sung that lots, because I was training to be a Kundalini teacher. And I sung it to my girls every single night, but I would think I was really singing it to myself. And that song just really helped me through the mess that was matrescence. It really helped me. And if someone wants to look it up, I think that the version that I loved is by a woman called something Satnam Kaur, I think it is, Caur. It's called May the Long Time Sun.
May the Long Time Sun. I'm going to find it on Spotify.
Super sweet. It is super sweet, and I sung it. It's kind of like a lullaby.
Yeah.
And I would say that song just really helped me through matrescence, for sure.
That sounds beautiful. That sounds like it's one that could equip lots of people.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. If you listen to this, I think it's Satnam Kaur, her voice is like crystal. I mean, it's just like next level. She is channeling something. And so I think even when you listen to those more kind of spiritual artists, for me, they tap into something in me.
Yeah, definitely.
And it really helps me whenever I feel disconnected or like just mental. I'll put on something like that, which I wouldn't normally. It's not like your standard. No, but it really helps me.
I think that sort of music does actually, it can scientifically help regulate your nervous system. So that sounds like a really good one for helping the mess subside. Love it. Thank you, Zoe. Honestly, you are an absolute inspiration. You're such a wealth of knowledge. I love listening to Motherkind, and I absolutely love the book. It's definitely one for anyone who needs some assistance navigating the mess that can be entrance to motherhood and matrescence. Thank you so much for this conversation. I've loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. I am so grateful to you for tuning in and allowing some more mess to be uncovered with me. The Mess We're In is edited by David Strutt, music by Michelle Cade, who you can find on Spotify as Mind Like Water, and I am Liv Nunn. If you enjoyed this episode, it would make such a difference if you can hit follow or subscribe and share in any way. It really helps get this conversation flowing in a less messy manner. If you want to know how to connect with me, all the details are in the show notes. I'll be back very soon to spotlight and honour more of our messy selves. Be open, be kind, be messy.